Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Franchise Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, it's mainly revolving around them filming kind of like a very pivotal, I don't know, I guess it's considered an action sequence. It's a very specific sequence that they're filming revolving around a jackhammer, which I love. It all revolves around Adam being very insecure about, he's like, I know I have like the Dorito body, kind of like big on top and like thin or on bottom, and it's like, and then Dax adding in her commentaries a little jabs about, not jabs, but a little extra commentary about his legs being great. But it doesn't help that Adam is constantly getting crapped on by Peter. He's making these little snide comments about like, oh man, it must be like, he's just such a dick. And we find out why. He's mainly a dick because Adam is number one on the call sheet, and that's all it is. You're still number two, like, but once again, nobody wants to be number two because he even says like, right, he's number two in this, and his mom calls him number two, like he's never good enough. I was like, that's depressing. But it's like, hey, you got to get you're so insecure and messed up that you're like, hey, I got to get whatever power tripping I can get, whatever fulfillment I get of being number one. I need to get it where I can get it because it's the only form of love I gotta get. Hell, I'll go ahead and talk about it because it's at the end of the episode. Someone had to have made sure that that interview he's giving at the end of the episode during the credits, that has to get nixed, right? Someone had to see that and be like, you have to, I mean, I don't know how that works of like with the interview, like it's their footage. So I think you still have to go through them to be like, I wonder how much of this footage at the end is coming out and how much of it's not. Once again, we're also talking about a movie of it could easily not come out. So that's the whole thing of like all this footage might be lost to the void type of thing. But him telling a story about like, oh yeah, like I worked with a chimpanzee. In fact, he's like two. One of them ended tragically. One tried to go for like its bonbon, tried to eat at a craft service table, and the owner beat it to death with the axe handle. It was like, oh, it's gruesome and terrible, and kind of put a little bit of a stain on the promotion because, hey, it couldn't promote the movie. I mean, because obviously it was dead. They brought in another chimpanzee to go to Carson, but just it didn't work out. The whole thing was a wash. And he's like, yeah, I think that's why the movie couldn't find its audience. I'm like, how much did the general public know about a chimpanzee being brutally murdered on set? And he's just like, yeah, but, oh, Bong, haven't thought about him in 30 years. Or Peter Mabbott. I was like, geez, dude, you were such an unnecessary... But I think he's supposed to be playing, like, the role of, like, the big-time diva who thinks he's hot shit when he's just kind of, like, not. But going back to Adam's insecurities really quickly, I love the whole bit of just, like, him being, like... the jackhammer thing and him feeling so stupid. It's like, once again, any actor's got to feel that where you're just kind of like, you know, when it's not the wire stuff or CG, it's got to make you feel weird. Like, how is this going to work? How is it going to look? I even love, you had that line from Daniel where it's like, let me be frank here. He's like, the jackhammer, he's like, I didn't like it I hated it in the comics. I hated it in the cartoons, which I was like, I think that's funny because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, there's certain things that people are like, that's not something you need to adapt. It's a weird thing from the comics that we don't have to adapt. Funny enough, timing-wise, under the same umbrella, I'm sure there are some people feeling like that for Crypto, because Crypto isn't something that's used that often, but I also think people are underestimating, like, he probably hasn't been used in the movies, but TV-wise, he has been. He was in Smallville, he's obviously had an animated series back in the day, but also most recently he was used in Titans, so it's not like, but I guess for the general public who's not as well-versed in all things superhero, like, adaptation media, like, for a lot of people, it's like, what, they're doing Crypto in the Superman movie? It's like, well, he's also apparently crucial to the Supergirl movie because it's based on Woman Tomorrow, and apparently he's like kind of a main character in that storyline. So it just kind of got me thinking about that, where it's like for some people, it's like Crypto's that weird thing, like it's aside of Superman, it's such an old school Superman thing that people ignore. You might get like a wink and nod, like in Supergirl, they wink and nod to, is it Scratchy? And Scratchy is Supergirl's cat. Like the only other time I've ever seen that come up was like the animated Crypto cartoon, because I think the other Super Pets popped up in that. And there's also a Super Pet movie, but I don't know if Scratchy's in that. I've only seen the trailer for that a while back. I never seen the movie. But anyway, it's just one of those things where it's like there's certain things from comics you just kind of ignore. It's such a weird, stupid thing that it's like you don't have to adapt it because it might be so far back in the gold or bronze, or no, the bronze or silver age of comics and not the more modern take. So I have also loved the whole conversation because it's like taking shots at Marvel slash Kevin Feige because they're like, oh, Shane is spread so thin like an octopus, and it's like, yes, because that was kind of the thing of Kevin Feige wasn't overseeing everything like the producer he is, just because his hands were there were so many projects, so many like cooks in the kitchen, so much happening at once. He couldn't oversee a lot of the projects like he normally would have kept in a better eye on, or him and his team would have kept a better eye on. So once again, stuff like that. Also, poor Daniel with the whole freaking the whole like breathing exercise, and he's vaping to it. I was like, that actually makes me want to almost hyperventilate. Like when he's supposed to be breathing and he's taking a puff and he's doing it so quickly because it's supposed to be mimicking the breathing exercise. I don't know why. Like him puffing that vape actually made me super anxious. I'm like, it makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel short of breath. It's just like, ugh, I hate that feeling. I also love that we get our kind of full introduction to Anita. Obviously, she's the new producer, so she's making a lot of changes. It's like, oh, let's set up this meeting. Oh, it was canceled. And I love that Daniel immediately, and Dag constantly pointing it out, like, oh yeah, it's kind of a power move, you know, just to kind of assert her control. So it's like, right, I'm kind of getting fucked with big time here, so. They ended up losing the 80 Mossmen they needed for the scene they're shooting today because Eric wanted it. I mean, he even like, not even storyboarded it out. He drew it out. And even Daniel was like, Jesus, dude, this is actually, it looks so good. And it's like, yeah, but I had like a whole bunch of Mossmen and now I'm down to 5. It's like, so how are we going to make this work? So they eventually had to stick with the 5. And I love they brought in, what was his name? Jamie, the special effect artist. He's kind of like on his last leg. And they're just like, can you do that? He's like, yeah, but it's going to look shitty and stuff like that. They're like, no, but you can do it. He's like, yeah, and it might kill me in the process. Okay, go ahead. I'm like, oh, that's... Once again, it's also bringing attention. It's making a joke of something, but also bringing attention to that has been a big thing more recently. You know, if you pay attention to the Hollywood system, that, you know, that's something that's been a bigger note of animators and, you know, I think special effect artists fall in that category too. But yeah, special effects people as well as animators have been kind of run through the mud when it comes to crunch and just only having a certain amount of time to do certain things, and just it's like, yeah, it's also going to be extremely expensive getting like digitally adding these 80 people, and it's not going to look that good, but it is what it is. That's the time crunch you're on. So because they've got to make this movie happen, because if they don't, everyone's potentially going to lose their job. And a movie like you being part of the reason why a movie kind of fell apart, it's going to stain you and your career potentially getting any jobs going forward, especially if it's like you got fired. Like, getting laid off is one thing. Being fired is like a stain on your it'll always be this nasty stain on your career. So I think it's interesting. I think it speaks volumes. The fact is, Daniel waited so long to finally go see Anita, because he didn't want to, because like, well, they had their awkward first run in last episode, and she's doing all her power plays this episode. So it's just kind of like I'm avoiding her as much as possible. I'm trying to like seem like I'm still in control. I'm trying to make it seem like everything's okay. We're still a functioning machine, because if I don't, this is all going to blow up in my face, and I don't want to kind of give her too much power, because if she, you know, she's flexing like he said she was, and she's here trying to make an example as a producer. It's like, hey, I got to come in here. I kind of have to give you, like, I have to smack you around a little bit. As she says, like, I have to do a public hanging, and you kind of have to get burned a little. But it's like, yeah, it's all for the purposes of, I got to make my mark as the producer on, a main producer on this now. Oh my god, I wish I could I always feel so bad because I forget some of the stuff Dag says in this episode. And just in the first episode too. She has these like small like one-liner bits and stuff that I forget when they're in that room and she kept going on and on. She was saying something that even I was like, oh, that's kind of messed up. You're kind of nitpicky very right now, Dag. And he's like, I'm sorry, but I just need to get this done. I'm sorry I'm yelling at you. I didn't mean to. She's like, I filled your water bottle. He's just like, and now you've made me feel like such an asshole. She's like, sorry. And so it's just like, right, just let me like do my thing and you follow suit and we'll kind of make it through this. We'll keep our heads intact. And it's like, oh, look at this little thing hanging from the ceiling of this room. It's like, oh, a little bit of fun. It's like, yeah, Jim, the third AD before you, he put that up there before he killed himself. And Dag laughs like, ha ha ha. But then Daniel's dead serious. I was like, that is dark. That is so damn dark. Also, Daniel trying to help Adam, and he's just like, for real, he's like, you're actually my friend. And Daniel's like, oh, really? That's actually really nice that you view me as that. I'm sure that doesn't happen often where like the first AD and the talent are friends, because it's like probably like above the line and below the line. You know, I'm sure that there's a stigma behind like some actors acting like they're too good. I could definitely see Peter being that type of guy, but Adam being like pretty tight knit with Daniel. Granted, that could just be a one-way thing of, oh, cool, you feel that way. I'm just trying to get this movie made, so whatever. But he talks about like, oh, I had to give up a pretty high-priced dog to get this gig. He's like, now tell me, the Jackhammer thing, do I look stupid? He's like, no, man, you look badass. He's like, oh my god, yeah, I feel so cool just doing it right now. He's like, yeah. So he's like, oh, can you talk to Peter? It's like, okay, I'll talk to Peter. And what was it he said? Like, I gave up one dog, but I found another one. Which I love it because it's kind of like, you understand what he's saying. He's mean like, oh, you're my dog, you're my buddy. But it's also like, effed up at the same time. It's like, I know your intentions, but that the way that could also be interpreted is kind of fucked up too. So but it's like, yeah, obviously Daniel didn't take it that way, but yeah. But poor Daniel, like getting ripped to shreds in front of everybody. And I guess it's like everyone, even though Eric likes Daniel, he joined in where it's just like, Anita's like, hey, come over here, everybody, as I rip him a new shred him a new asshole. And like everyone has to gather around. I even love Dag joins in. She's like, yeah, sorry, I kind of added in back there. But it's just, the energy was so hyped, I kind of had to join in. It's like, oh, I'm so glad you're having so much fun, Dag, when we're so close to all potentially losing our jobs. But basically, it was about how the whole operation is kind of so slow. It's like, why is Eric talking for like 45 minutes before we're even shooting anything? And Eric's like, yeah, it's kind of a slow process. And it's like, yeah, Eric, you're the great one here. So it's all kind of falling. Every like shortcoming on this production comes down on him. And then like the fact is, Anita's like, I don't want this to be a witch hunt. And then Pat comes over and is like, oh, why don't we make it a witch hunt? And just like Shane's adding in, not Shane, Bryce's in-between guy, his middle guy, Bryce is responding to Shane of like, yeah, the person that's getting ripped to shreds right now is first AD Daniel. So, but yeah, getting back to the Jackhammer thing, because they can only do it 3 times because Peter's back can only take it, and they've like legally bound, it's in a contract, they can only do it like 3 times because his back gives out after that. His spine can't handle it. So they ended up doing it once, and it went extremely slow. They did it right the second time, but the problem is Adam sneezed during it, so that fucked that take. So... And that's when Daniel brought up the whole, like, we don't have to do the Jackhammer thing. And Anita's like, right, I'll talk to Shane. But her attempts to reach Shane didn't work because Bryce was like, actually, Shane's really busy right now. He can't contact you. So because even Daniel was kind of not too fine about the idea of the Jackhammer. I don't know if I think the whole point was he added that in there because Shane wanted it in there, kind of like higher up, executive decisions and stuff like that. But... she goes to see Pat, and they're up there like the sound stage where they're doing the second movie is infested with pigeons, and so they're using kind of like a laser pointer to blind them because they can't actually laser them and kill them because that'd be a whole big no-no. So it's like we have to. It's supposed to be the most humane way of dealing with the pigeons. That's so effed up in its own right, but whatever. She's trying to talk to Pat, and it turns out that there was something called Sister Squad that had just got canceled, the entire project. It's like, yeah, because Shane was at a Comic-Con and no one could get him to say no. So he ended up announcing too much stuff. And now you know the whole thing of we have to pull back fewer projects. I was like, and shots fired at Marvel, because that was kind of the whole Disney Plus era of things, which we're still in that bubble of it. But it's just like, yeah, they announced too many projects. So many projects kind of fell short because of just timing and need to get stuff out to put it out on Disney Plus. So that the machine gobbled itself in that regard. So, and making fewer projects is where Disney is right now in general across the board, but specifically with, I think, Star Wars and Marvel. There might be things in development, but things actually being filmed currently and stuff like that is a lot less. You're getting less projects put out in a single year. So, like I said, it's a thing of critiquing the thing that people love. And yes, there's a hate bandwagon on Marvel. Once again, I love Marvel, and I understand people's criticisms of it, but I can also enjoy the jokes of like, oh, I get that. Because it's like, yeah, you're speaking to the entire audience with that. It's like, oh, there's so many people feeling that and understanding that. That's what just makes it great. Once again, I think I brought this up first episode. It's like, right, you can criticize and like make fun of the thing you love. It's not out of hate, it's out of love, you know. Because even Daniel made this point of these movies are not hitting like they used to, and just like, yeah, that's the biggest thing being held against Marvel. I mean, once again, like, I won't go in my whole like diatribe of like it's very easy to hate Marvel now. It's like that's the cool thing. You're a shill if you don't hate Marvel, but also once again, you can have having criticisms is different from just being like Marvel sucks, it's garbage, it's terrible. Marvel was always bad. You know, there's hate, and then there's just like, yeah, things haven't been slapping like they used to. Is it, a constructive criticism? You know, there's a difference. So, I'm saying the latter is constructive criticism. Hopefully, that's not getting messed up in my ramblings. But yeah, and it's like. But, you know, obviously it's like there was a press thing released on, was it Deadline? And Anita's like, my name is on it. And Pat's like, there is no way we're going to throw you under the bus. We would never do that. She's like, yeah, thanks, Pat. He's like, thanks, Anita. And you're like, these two are going to throw her under the bus. Because, like, because your name is attached to it. So it's kind of like a director where it's like, if a movie doesn't do well, you are seen as the face of the movie. Same thing kind of for the actors, too. It's like directors and actors get a stain on their reputation because of that. So it is what it is, you know. And so they end up shooting the scene, and I love Anita and Daniel being like, yeah, so that Jackhammer, yeah, it's great. I'm sure, yeah, slap some VFX on it, color grading, it's gonna be great. And so they end up shooting the scene, and it goes off without a hitch, and it's like, yay. We were going to cut the whole Jackhammer thing, but it's like, no, we have to keep that in there. Just keep it moving, keep it pushing. And then it's like, yeah, we're all good, right? And Anita's like, yeah, we're great. As a producer, yeah, we're great. As your friend, basically, this shit is burning, and we are basically going to war. But we're not going to war. I'm just joking. Everything's fine. Everything's great. And it's like, because she's basically like, yo, Rome is burning. And it's like, it is. And I love, she tried to like let it out for a second, but then she was like, had to put producer face back on and be like, no, it's great. Everything's fine. And Daniel kind of like, okay, cool. So that's where we are. We started off with a lot of stress, him stressing out in the beginning of the episode, and we're ending the episode with just kind of a swift kick in the nuts. And you're going to be feeling that pain for a while because everyone is worried and afraid because, as kind of got brought up, your movie can get canned at any moment. So you know they're going to, because I don't think they brought it up in episode 1. They have to. Once again, you could point it to Marvel, but there's also DC stuff that you can point to as well. But I'm like, this is, it's under the Warner Brother umbrella because it's on HBO, but it's like, they have to do the whole, like, tax break situation. Once again, I'm behind on these episodes, so I don't remember if they brought that up in episode 1. I don't think they ever referenced tax breaks. They might have, but I don't remember. If they haven't done that already, it's coming at some point in time because it's like, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. So Oh my god, I forgot about that line from Pat when he was talking to Anita. He's like, I think it was during the Sister Squad movies. It's like the writers that got brought in to do the pre-writes on the rewrites that hadn't even happened yet. I was like, Jesus Christ, because I think Dag had said something early on in the beginning of the episode about the script. She's like, oh yeah, these seem so heavy, and that must mean they're good, right? And she made some comment about, like, you never thought about the fact that they might be terrible. She said something, and then, like, Daniel was like, nope, it actually never crossed my mind. I'm actually so curious what Dag is getting out of this, because she has this, like, delivery of something where it's like she has this chipper personality, but she says, like, some very nitpicky things, and it's just, I guess she's just here for the ride. I don't really know what she plans to get out of the job, if this is meant to be a long career, how she got to this position. I don't know. She doesn't seem nearly as stressed out as Daniel. To be fair, he's the first AD, and it's kind of like this production seems to ride on him more so than it does anybody else. So excited to see where the next episode takes us. I'm going to this late, so episode 3 is already out. In fact, episode 4 comes out tonight at the time you're recording this. It'll kind of put in perspective how far behind I am. But I'm excited to continue the show and see where the hell this craziness ends up taking us going next. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.